Oh.
Susan, can you hear us? All right, can you just do a quick check on your mic? Make sure you're
Yes, can you hear me now?
Awesome.
Thanks. Sorry, I had to switch. I'm literally about to get a new computer from work any second now, but not soon enough, apparently.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Given that Mr. Purple isn't here, any one of us can kick the meeting off. So I'm just going to kick it off for the sake of kicking it off. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 out of our 7 voting members, if I'm counting correctly, and 1 ex officio member in Tim Davis. We also have 2 other ex officio members, Pam from the COA and Ryan from the library as well. So just to make sure everyone's clear on what an ex officio is, they're obviously town employees, department heads of their respective departments. They will not be allowed to vote on any matters, but they're obviously here to guide and consult with us as we go forward. What I thought we'd do is just, I don't know that everyone knows everyone. So if everyone can just kind of introduce yourself, why you're here, and if you are appointed by a specific board or committee, indicate that. And obviously any experience, because I think there's a wide breadth of experience on other committees in the town as well, for a lot of you. So Jen, do you want to start?
Sure. So Jen, nice to meet you guys. I'm here as the representative from the Recreation Commission, but also have experience across CPC and the Arts Council, and various other projects throughout town. So
Thanks. Bill?
I'm Bill Harrington. I'm representing the Council on Aging. I have been involved with the Council on Aging as its chairman for many years, and probably been 10 or 12 years on the Council on Aging. Was involved in the renovation of the current senior center when we redid the function hall and so forth, and right now involved in a possible renovation to the front of the senior center to add some more activity space. I've been very much involved in renovations and in the thoughts about community centers, senior centers, and its pros and cons. And I'm happy to be part of this committee to hopefully see something happen in this town for the seniors.
Great. Janet?
Hi, I'm here representing the library. I'm on the board of trustees. I've been in town for 40 years almost, and I've been on advisory committee. I headed up SOS, a town manager committee, lots of different committees through the years. So it'd be nice to, I'm excited about the idea of this.
Great. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan. This is my first foray really into town politics, town committees. My husband did some work with the town committee on the lighting bylaw, if you're familiar with that. We've done a bunch of things with Ryan at the library. And I bumped into, was it Sam and, oh my gosh, blanking on her name, but at the transfer station. And they were like, hey, Destin, hey, Susan, Destin being my husband. We need someone for this committee. I do a lot of this type of work, community work I work at the Museum of Science. And so that's a lot of what I do is this, but never for the town itself. I've lived in Southborough for 15 years now.
Great.
That's me.
Thank you. Tim?
Hey, I'm Tim Fling. I was on the committee, the noise bylaw committee, which was very, very painful. So I'm hoping that this is not the same experience that I had the first time around. So I was somewhat recruited to come back again for another pass at this or another thing. So now I'm here to see kind of how this one goes.
Awesome. Thanks. Tim Davis?
Hopefully this will be more fun for you, Tim. I have a feeling it will be. Tim Davis, I am your recreation director. I've been here for going on 4 years now, serving the town. Happy to be here.
Great. And I'm Jason Malinowski. I am the Capital Planning Committee representative that's now known as the Capital Improvement and Planning Committee, because we just went from an ad hoc to a permanent committee in town. I chaired that committee and also led some of the efforts that I guess led to this in the formation of this committee in terms of how it evolved from capital planning to a broader committee. So with that, what I would suggest we do is, if everyone's okay taking the agenda out of order, I would be more than happy to kind of walk through why this committee was formed, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we can talk about who wants to lead the charge on this moving forward with a chair, vice chair, and clerk. Is everyone okay with that?
Mhm.
And I'd be remiss to say Nikki Morrow is our 7th member. Could not attend tonight. She is a at-large member that was appointed by the select board. So just a little bit of background. I think Tim, you kind of hit it. This has been a long time coming. Tim Fling, that is, in terms of the committee was formed and a lot of you were appointed a long time ago. Some of us as board and committee representatives were appointed like 6 months ago, potentially. So what happened was last year around this time, the Capital Planning Committee had done a space needs study for all town departments, excluding police and fire. And I think we know why they were excluded, because they're obviously in a nice new facility. And we presented a variety of options, and candidly, options that aren't necessarily fully on the table yet that also involve the Woodward School. The main reason for that was the Capital Planning Committee that was leading that effort with a consultant was looking ahead and saw that there was a series of capital requests, mainly the Neary School, the Senior Center, the library, and always this background discussion of an overall community center / recreation center, whatever you want to call it. And we went through a lot of iterations. Some of you were involved with it. In particular, I'm looking at Janet, Bill, and Tim Davis in terms of representing your other committees. And as you can imagine, every group has their own desires, needs, and they don't always perfectly match together. And capital planning made a decision earlier this fiscal year, not calendar year, but in the town world, fiscal year starts in July, that we thought it would be better if the representatives of the various constituent groups were part of a formal committee that meets in a public setting, combined with obviously capital planning, as well as at-large members that really don't represent any group, to see if there wasn't a path forward, realizing that unless the town of Southborough somehow hits the lottery, there is no way to possibly ask taxpayers to build a new senior center, a new recreation center, a new library, and a new Neary School, all together in and around a 5 to 10 year period, and see what options we'd have available. Since that time, the Neary building received feasibility funding at last year's town meeting, and also was accepted into the state's competitive grant program to receive matching funds for any potential renovation, addition, construction at that site. It also will explore the Woodward site and the Finn site as well, because it's looking at elementary. Trotter will candidly be excluded. That process, we expect in March or April that the state is going to advance Neary to the next round. Southborough's basically already gotten all of their documentation in that would meet the state's requirements to move to the next round. So you're going to start to see, and there is a separate building committee already in place there, that will start to move forward. What it is, we don't know, but it's clearly going to be a large project, even if you're gutting it and just making it safe to inhabit moving forward as a school. And also as part of that analysis, it was clearly determined that we couldn't just close Neary and consolidate into the existing Woodward and Finn school with our current enrollment. So forget about what your existing enrollment is, like what the future may hold for the town, what developments may exist. We couldn't do it just with the existing footprints that we have. It would have required some sort of addition, et cetera. And also as part of that study, we also studied the population and learned what Bill probably could have already told us, that our senior population is candidly booming in the town of Southborough. And those numbers have increased exponentially as compared to the school-aged student population. So a lot of ideas were floated. Some were received with better views than others. And candidly, I don't think even on some boards and committees, some had differing views of how they wanted to advance. So that's our job, at least as I see it, and how the charge was written. Obviously, the charge is a bit dated, and we can talk about what we want to do there and request of the select board. We can't change it unilaterally. We would need them to change it. But we need to, the punchline here is we need to start meeting, and we need to come up with a plan of what direction we may go, because it will directly impact the Neary project in terms of is Woodward going to be potentially used for municipal needs or not? And obviously a community center could be part of that. We've been very transparent as part of the Neary process with the state about that. They ask every meeting we have of what's the current state of affairs there and what's the appetite of the town. Ultimately, the state support is going to follow the local support. So if they see a divided community on what to do with that building, they're likely going to pull their support. They see, I mean, you're never going to get 100%, but if they see a unified community, around a certain path forward that makes sense for not only the schools, but, broader population, then you're going to see a much more favorable result. So that's been shared. It's been in public. But the work of this committee is going to help inform that decision. And at least the currently elected school committee is definitely in favor of exploring any option that involves that, if it means, being able to enhance the Neary facility. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions. I just threw a lot out there, and I think some of you are more familiar with it than others.
Sorry, there was a timeline on that Neary committee, right? Do you know when they're supposed to have their recommendation, or?
So on October 1st, we entered the state's eligibility period. That's a 270-day period. We received notification from the state that they plan no later than the April board meeting to take action on whether we advance to feasibility. So we approved money at last town meeting. We haven't spent a penny of it yet, because all we've been doing is showing that we're eligible for a project, which is trending very well. Once that starts, it will start about another year of iterations. Do you do a grades 3 through 5 building? Do you do a grades 2 through 5 building? Do you keep it as grades 4 and 5? But what they're going to want to know is, what are you doing with Woodward if you're taking any of the grades out of there?
Okay, so, and I guess one of my thoughts coming into this is I thought that there would be or people would be making a decision about Neary first, or are these really the community center and Neary is all intertwined and we need to kind of solve them together?
I think that's what we have to do. I think this
Okay.
is similar to the public safety building, golf course.
Yep.
I think about that St. Mark's committee, which I believe Bill was actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, I think you were on that committee, or you're very active with that committee. Nonetheless, I know when we were looking at some of that stuff. So it's going to be intertwined, because it's going to go down to how much can we actually afford with all of this. And obviously the library is, and Ryan or Janet can comment on this, potentially entering a grant funding period for themselves, depending on where the state goes there, and have some near-term capital items, at least on our capital plan.
Yeah, so we're learning about the Massachusetts construction program. There's been some streamlining, which has been an effort from some of the new construction specialists at the MBLC for the past couple of years. So the time frame, this used to be like something where you would apply, you get planning and design money, and then you potentially get on a wait list with like maybe a dozen other libraries. They're now going to make it a competitive grant cycle, we've learned. So they're only going to fund about 10 libraries. And it's the delineation of money is a lot more clear, which is actually really great, I think, for setting expectations with your municipality and for kind of doing capital planning, right, in any sort of organized way. So the trustees need to decide if they want to file a letter of intent, which would give us the option to apply for the grant next year. We would then go for planning and design money first in FY24. And then it looks like there wouldn't be a construction ask until about FY27. So you guys, Janet is going to hear all this twice, unfortunately, but this is a lot of the trustees have been on the meetings with the state. And again, this like is less than 2 weeks that we found out about this, that they announced the grant round and then that they started doing information sessions, which are already over. So there's a recording on that I can send you, Jason, and I can send any of the trustees.
I'd send to this whole group. Once you brief the trustees and see where they're going, I think this whole group could benefit from hearing that.
Yes. So we'll be back to say, because I think the trustees really need to have a discussion about whether or not this is the time. I know that, you know, I've been library director now for almost 9 years. This was something they were talking about in my initial interviews. A lot of the board has turned over, but I think the appetite for having a bigger library and for looking at expanding space has been always on the table. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Janet, or if I covered it all.
Nope, that's good. Thank you.
So, and Jen, for your benefit, like based on your question, whatever the timeline Ryan just articulated is basically the same timeline the schools are going to come to from a NERI perspective.
And when you said April, so that would potentially release matching funds from the state to start feasibility studies, or okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then like that's going to take a good year of feasibility studies, right?
Then we have to go do a public process to hire an owner's project manager, public process to hire an architect. That takes 4 to 8 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's slow.
Speaking of timelines, do you still see, even though we're getting kind of a late start, do you still see us completing our work by, was it June 30th of this year, or is that potentially going to be extended?
Well, our draft report was due in December of 2022.
So yeah.
No, I don't know what people's schedules are, and like at least half of us are on other committees too, and obviously life gets in the way too. So I think we have to decide what we think our timeline is, and I think that's something we can discuss on the charge, because I think we should make a recommendation to the select board based on how fast or slow we think we can move.
So to our charge, do you know what exactly we are supposed to deliver from this group?
The main item I would think is we do have funding available through the capital planning committee to hire professionals. So basically we had a professional architect do the space needs. That was through a formal procurement process. We would not have to go back out and do a process unless this committee wanted to change, pass in terms of a new designer. But basically, I would think that would be our next step, would be to re-engage with them, dust off the feedback that came, right? So Jen, you and Tim would present where recreation was, right? Tim Fling and Susan probably need to hear what the proposals on the table were. Janet and Ryan will come and say, well, this is where the library board of trustees was unanimous. This is where we were split, and Bill would do the same for COA with Pam. And then let everyone kind of hear why we were at this like crossroads of spider web. And, then I know the architect we kind of stopped them because we wanted to make sure everyone had time. The architect already has ideas of other things we can start to explore. And then I think the select board also has put something in here that we're going to probably have to charge one or two individuals with this public-private partnership concept. And I'm sure those that put it in from the select board, I believe it was Kathy, did it. I'm sure would be willing to consult on the side with what the intent was there, but I think that was an avenue that was never explored or considered by capital.
What's this public-private? I don't see it in the charge on the website.
It is,
Is it?
yeah.
If you're looking directly at the website, Tim, sometimes based on the browser, it cuts it off. I'm going to see if I can find the charge.
While Jason's looking, I can also just tell you, as part of the construction grant for the library, we have to look at we can choose to renovate our existing site, but we have to look at a minimum of 2 sites. So one of the ideas could be a shared facility. But what I've learned is that the state will give you money only if you meet a certain construction standard. And some of the things, just to give you like a glimpse, is like the library needs to have its own dedicated programming space. The climate controls within the library need to be controlled by the library in a specific library section. And then we also need, trying to think of the other big one. Oh, we need our own bathrooms. Like it has to be on the library specific side. So I was going over just some of the initial like kind of stipulations of this shared facility concept with John Parent. And he said it might cost more to look at like making Woodward like for this library, like to accept the grant money and make it like the library side than just to build a new building. And I have to say, I don't initially disagree with his.
But I think that's where consultants will help us, right? They do cost estimating all the time and hopefully work with these programs. So to answer your question, Tim, it's the 4th bullet point on a chart. It says, understand the financial constraints of the town and bring forward one or more fiscally responsible plans to advance a project for further considerations by the taxpayers of Southborough, including consideration of a public-private partnership.
Okay. Yeah, I found it. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically that was the capital voted on this charge, sent it to the select board, and then the select board added that one, literally couple of words.
What does the private public concept mean, or what is it?
I think we're going to need to have someone that actually, I do not, it's based.
I'll take a guess at it. We have a lot of empty buildings on Route 9. So I would imagine my opinion of it could be some kind of lease relationship with one of those buildings. Maybe part of the piece we could present would be maybe some kind of tax break on that building with the lease, but that's my guess at it, but that's my guess.
Well, I remember Sam Stivers talking about something probably 5 years ago on advisory, and it was a partnership between maybe the town of Wellesley and some organization that I don't know, there was a complete community center or some particular sports setup, but I think that's probably where that came from. Sam doesn't give up on an idea.
Yeah. So Sam, sorry, I see you in the audience. If that was your idea, not Kathy's, I apologize, but I know it came from the select board.
I apologize for if this is, I'll probably ask a lot of these questions where I'm not totally sure if it's relevant or related or not, but public-private also, could it potentially mean private funding for something? So being able to explore individual gifts or private foundation type gifts. So other ways of raising money and not just, the lease building also could be a possibility, but is it possible that it's another type of financial avenue?
Yeah, and there are restrictions of what we'll be able to do as an appointed body
That's
as
right.
well. Not to complicate. So I think we need to get someone that understands that to come present to us of where it has worked. Or someone go out and research it, right? I think Wellesley's the right town, Janet. I know there's a few others that have done things. I don't know if it was because of local residents, because of community with the business, or whether it was just there are companies I think that do this. Right, and right, that confront the capital up front, and there's some arrangement over a long period of time.
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't want to drift too far straight because I skipped over how we want to organize, so I think we should go back to that just so we have a clear cadence of where we want to go. So we need a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. All these meetings are recorded, so theoretically we could swap meeting minutes too. We are not going to get a minute taker as much as I'm sure everyone wants one. But I know even though we'll formally elect a clerk, I've seen many other committees just swap it around the group so that
Yep.
no one person has the burden, and everyone has their different styles of doing it live during the meeting or watching the replay. But this will be the easiest meeting probably to type up notes on. So
Are you taking notes, Jason? Or we know we don't have to, it's recorded. Okay.
yeah, so I guess, does anyone want to be chair? Don't all raise your hand at once.
I actually wanted to talk about that a little bit. I was wondering whether it would be appropriate for any of the major stakeholders like library trustee or rec commission. I'm wondering whether there might be too much bias, or people might suspect bias in the results of the committee if one of those representatives were the chair.
I'm sure there will be comments no matter which way you go.
Yeah. Okay. If nobody else feels like that's a big issue, then that's fine.
I think if you end up with only a library, Janet, and like let's just say you were chair and you end up with only a library, I think that's, and everyone else, right? Like but that's why I think it's structured. I mean, at least I can speak for myself as capital. Like I have to listen to all departments every year, and we have to weigh each department evenly. Obviously, each you, Bill, and Jen have your respective groups that appointed you, but then we have 3 at-large members. So theoretically, the non-appointed ones could, swing. You can swing it either way. That's, I think, the reason why 7 was so important in terms of number of votes.
Can you briefly say what the responsibilities of the chair and the vice chair will be?
So there's a lot of people that chair other committees. I'll give you my 2 cents and certainly weigh in. The chair runs the meeting. Basically is responsible for setting the agenda, coordinating and making sure the right information is available to the committee in advance to streamline the conversation. Basically has pretty wide range of how to conduct the meeting in terms of there will be public comment at some point, especially like as you start to formulate plans. But it's really the behind the scenes work that I think takes a ton of time in getting ready so that these meetings don't go 4 or 5 hours and that they're streamlined and efficient. And I think that was some of what Tim was probably referring to from the noise bylaw committee. Vice chair certainly supports the chair in any way that person sees fit. Also runs the meeting in the absence of the chair, or to the extent there's a conflict at some point in terms of conflict of interest and the chair has to recuse themselves, would run the meeting until the chair was able to come back for that portion of discussion. And then the clerk is solely responsible for making sure we get minutes done and have them ready for the next meeting. It can be as simple as following up and saying, Ryan, I asked you to do the minutes, where are they, sort of thing. I'm just kidding, Ryan. Just making sure that they're done and then ultimately submitted to the town clerk for posting, because there are rules around that I won't go into the timing, because we'll get them done and not have to worry about it.
Well, do you want to take nominations?
Yeah.
I'll nominate Jason Malinowski for chair. Certainly has plenty of experience at it.
So is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so I'm gonna start the discussion. I really don't want to be chair unless you really want me to be chair. Like if someone wants to be chair, I have enough going on that I don't need to accept the nomination, but I'm happy to do it at least to start, to get us rolling, given the background that obviously I have, given I'm on the committee that referred this to kind of a broader group. So if anyone really wants it though, I will ask Janet to withdraw her motion. So does anyone really want it? All right. I guess we have to do a vote then. All right. I haven't memorized our alphabet yet. So we have to do a roll call vote for those that haven't done this before when we're on Zoom. So Bill,
Yes,
Janet,
Yes,
Tim Fling,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and Jen.
Yes.
And I'm going to abstain. So that'll be a 5-0-1 vote.
okay.
Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I'll throw my hat in the ring.
Does anyone else want to throw their hat in the ring? All right, then I'll move we appoint Tim as vice chair. Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call on that. Bill,
yes,
Janet,
yep,
Tim?
Fling?
Yeah,
Yes.
the good news is Tim Davis can't vote. So anytime I say Tim on a vote, you're good. Susan,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
and Jason's yes. So that was 6-0. And clerk, does anyone want to volunteer to be clerk?
As long as it means I don't have to do the minutes every single time, I'm happy to be responsible for someone doing the minutes each time. I don't mind doing that.
Awesome. Does anyone have any objections to that? Then I'll move that we appoint Susan as our clerk. Is there a second?
second,
Second.
All right, that was seconded by Tim. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Bill,
yes,
Janet,
yes,
Tim,
Yep.
Susan?
Yep.
Jen?
Yes.
And I am yes, so that's 6-0. All right. Moving forward. Does everyone feel like they have an overview of the process that led to committee formation?
good.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about review of draft charge and potential recommended edits for select board consideration. So in the charge, a lot of it's familiarizing yourself with what happened last time and where we were before kind of capital kind of put this down for a little bit. So I will certainly take the homework exercise of sending around the final study that really showed the space needs that each group had articulated they need in some of the iterations that were proposed. There's also a pretty comprehensive presentation. It was a public meeting, so I'll get the video from that. I mean, some of you have already seen it, so I'm sure you don't really want to rewatch it again. And then most importantly, I want to get the commentary we got after that meeting from the various boards and committees, just so you know where we landed. And I probably asked Bill, Janet, and Jen to come prepared, like with where your committees or commissions had land or boards landed, right? In terms of before we kind of put our pencils down and paused and took a deep breath. I think that would be a really good use of our next meeting, right? So give everyone some reading material, understand what was done, where it was trending. We'll have a little more news on NERI by then as well, in terms of where that's headed, the timing around that. And then I think it will help inform a timeline. But what I would suggest is that we simply ask the select board to alter our charge to that we provide an update presentation to them of where we're headed no later than June of 2023. That doesn't have to be we're going to a fall town meeting and asking for $1 million of engineering funds. It's like, this is what we've done. This is what we've ruled out. This is where we're going, and go from there. And I think, Ryan, given the breaking news on the library, you'll probably know a lot more of where that's trending as well. So that would be what I would propose, as opposed to trying to ring fence anything else.
Could you give me just a better idea of what you want from the COA next meeting as far as presentation?
So I think what I'm going to do, Bill, is I'm going to just send what was presented by DRA, which was the architect, right? And obviously the council was very present at that meeting and in future meetings. I think you should kind of outline where your current committee is at, right? In terms of what you think the long-term needs are for a senior/community center, right? Is it the existing building that's right behind you in your picture? Is it, another building? What obstacles did you see at Woodward as an example? I think I also have asked Mark in my capital role to understand the legal limitations of the library parcel, right? Because of how that was gifted to the town, and to get access to legal counsel, to understand just what options we do or don't have there, because there was space, right, as Ryan and Janet will remember, of various iterations that I don't think your board is truly enthralled with. But just understand what the limitations are of each site. And then I think it's really important for any of you that haven't seen some of these sites that we at least have in our inventory, we can arrange to do a tour at some point, to just to understand, once you have the piece of paper in front of you, what the architect was seeing, right? What their vision was for the space, and then, see where that guides us. And I think as part of that next meeting, I can also try to get a proposal for what next steps they would recommend and what that would cost, so that we can make a recommendation on that, or go back to the drawing board and find someone else.
Yeah, I still, I think I'd kind of requested, because I wasn't part of the discussions about kind of the legal review of the library, so I don't know where kind of that landed.
Neither do I.
I'd love more information, Jason. I wasn't even part of that. I didn't even know that had been requested. So that's something I'm interested in. I can let you know. So
Yeah, I don't think we asked for it. And I think there was more questions than answers. So I think let obviously them get through town meeting and everything that's ahead of them in the next month. But that's something that's certainly on my mind for potential options.
and I'm sure Janet and the rest of the trustees are also very interested.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think the reason that's important, just for everyone's benefit, is we do end up in a new facility or some other facility as part of anything the library chooses to do, right? That building cannot go away. So, right, what could it be used for, right? So if that's just a potential scenario that we need to understand the options for.
You mentioned other options for community center, senior center, whatever, other than Woodward, that we could have looked at or should have looked at?
My personal view is I'd love to understand the library, right? Like where the library goes, right? Is that potentially an option, right? If the library gets something of what they need and that building is vacant and no longer a library, is that an option? We always have a beautiful townhouse. It's going to be even nicer in the next year once that's done. There was a lot of discussion around how to use that building. So yeah, I think, and I think we have potential, depending on what happens with Neary and the size of Neary and how many grades go there. There are empty space in other areas of schools as well.
Plus the senior center itself is an option.
Exactly. So is everyone okay with making that request to the select board?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I would hope it doesn't generate a ton of questions. And then I will request either Sam, Kathy, or whoever they would recommend present something on public-private partnerships, whether it be to the full committee or whether someone wants to kind of run with that on the side and come back to the committee, that's also a really good path that will save some of us time in the short run, to kind of hear like where that, what the options are there. So that's the other option. We can talk through how we want to deal with that portion of our charge. Any thoughts?
I'm happy to reach out to one of those guys and see if they want to just give an answer, kick it off to somebody else.
Okay. And then you just, I think, Tim, what you should do is, I'll just put a standing item on the agenda for update on public-private partnership research. And if you need something broader than that or more detailed than that to comply with open meeting law, let me know, or if you can have a full presentation or something like that.
Okay. I'm hoping it's just an email response.
Yeah, with a few links. Yeah, no, I hear you. Okay. So is there anything else you want to talk about on that tonight?
No, I'm just kind of wondering what, schedule of meetings we're talking about. You're gonna send out quite a big body of information for us to absorb. So I'm assuming we're not gonna meet next week.
I have no interest in meeting next week due to the school vacation. I'm sure there's
Oh,
other.
right. Well, then there's that.
But yeah, no, I would probably, even if it wasn't vacation week, it's those that haven't been as caught up, it's going to take a while to get through that thoroughly. So I guess let's decide on like day of the week first. And does this general time work or not? And we'll check with Nikki too, because I want to make sure that she's that works with her. But assuming we can gain on a consensus here, is there a night of the week that's out in?
Mondays are definitely out for me,
Okay.
and some Thursdays.
Okay.
I'm generally okay at the moment for most times, so I have some flexibility right now for the foreseeable future.
Me too.
Okay. So I didn't hear any objections to Wednesdays. Is there any objections to Wednesdays?
I'm okay with it.
I do.
Okay.
It shouldn't be a factor for you guys, but every second Wednesday, I have to host a meeting of our friends group for the library. So I just,
Okay.
if possible, I would say not the second Wednesday, only because I couldn't be here for you if you wanted that.
Okay. So I was just about to throw out the 8th, Ryan. I'm not joking. So how about we do the 1st or the 15th of March? So the 1st would be just under 2 weeks from tonight. The 15th would be 4 weeks from, just under 4 weeks from tonight.
I won't be available on the 15th.
Could we do a Tuesday? Did we say that Tuesdays were, like if we did Tuesday the 7th instead? Because that seems like a nice 3-week round number, but.
I would have to start like 7:30-ish, but I could do a Tuesday.
I could do all except for the second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday is Recreation Commission.
All right.
So
How about
we're still on that one.
Tuesday the 7th at 7:30 p.m. Does that work? Now,
If I'm the only one, then I can make it work, but I'd prefer the Wednesday over that Tuesday.
and then
Either.
was Ryan the only one with the conflict on the 8th? What time is your meeting, Ryan?
They start at 7:30, but I could, normally I would say the assistant director could run it, but I actually reached out to the Friends president specifically about talking about construction for the next meeting. So I kind of have to be there. I mean, if you guys, we have Janet from the library side. If the Friends meeting ends, I could always try to hop on. I could come and then leave if I have to do it for the Friends. So I don't want to be I'm not part of I'm ex officio. So if you guys want to meet without me, I'm not gonna I'll be sad, but I will understand. Let me put it like that.
Well, I think that next one, we're trying to catch a lot of people up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it might be repetitive anyways.
Yeah, you've been pretty up to speed on this, Ryan. So
I can catch Ryan up.
and Janet will have any necessary construction updates, anything you've learned over the next 3 weeks by then too, right?
Yeah, the friends also, I run the Zooms, so I could ask them if they'd be willing to move their meeting. They might be willing. So I can explore that and then I
let's
can
do
be
this
there with
way.
you that night.
Can everyone start at 7 on that night?
7th? Yeah.
Where are
This is
we?
the 7th? Yeah.
This is the 7th?
7 p.m. on Wednesday, March 8th.
Okay.
Oh, 8. Okay. Yep.
Everyone's good with that? And Ryan, if there's any library updates, you have the first half hour to get them in. But I don't think you should need the whole half hour, hopefully.
Are our meetings all gonna be on Zoom? Or are we gonna?
Well, let's
have
talk about that. Is Zoom easier for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
For now, we can do Zoom. We need our state legislature to act pretty quickly. Otherwise, we'll have to be back in person, but at least everything I've heard, I've asked a few times, there's no way they're gonna let it lapse. So this has happened a few times now for those, everyone's pretty aware. So we'll plan on Zoom. The 8th, we're fine. I think beyond that, we may have an issue if they don't act, but again, it's actually far more transparent because it's all recorded. So.
Is a Zoom meeting gonna be okay for presentations from the three of us? It would be.
Well, it depends on,
I will probably have some stuff I want to show you.
can you share your screen? Or send it to me in advance, or Tim, and one of us will share it.
I mean, I'll throw myself out there. During the noise bylaw thing, it was kind of easiest when one person kind of owned that piece, and I don't mind doing that again. So if we want to do like presentations of a person, I mean, if you guys feel comfortable, have at it. If you don't feel all that comfortable sharing your screen, I think that I'd be happy to receive it ahead of time, and I could log in appropriately to be able to do that.
Okay.
I think
I've never shared a screen on a.
send it to Tim, and it seems like he'll solve all the world's problems with that for you. But I do think once we get to a point where we're ready for public feedback, that's where we would try to arrange something in person. But we are ways away from that.
Another question, is is it the group chat or the group message board and everything that we have in Outlook? Is that all working now? I know some people weren't on the emails and some were, and I just want to make sure, is that going to be a good repository? Is that how, Jason, you can share information through that?
Yeah, everyone has town email, right? So
No,
you don't.
I don't. For some reason or other, I used to, it went away, and tech can't get me back on, so I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah.
All right.
Mine hasn't worked in a year or two either.
All right. I know how to find both of you, so I will make sure. What I can do is I will don't use that email group then, Susan, based on that. I will figure out with Jay Montijo or Hassan just to make sure everything's set up, because like I wasn't getting the emails either, and I've had a town email account that works. So I'll work with them to figure out the cadence there, and then we'll have a group email. Obviously, follow open meeting law. Don't send any content on. It's really meant for administrative, like setting up meetings and stuff like that, and to receive documentation to review in advance of the meeting.
I know Nikki doesn't get the town email either, and Katie's been sending us the emails that have been going out special through our regular emails, because she knows we're not getting them on the exchange one.
We will figure it out. This is usually the first challenge every committee has, unless it's all existing committee members, but you two are, so.
So Jason, I have a working email for Nikki if you need it.
Okay, just, you have my email, just send it to me and I'll.
Yep.
Okay, so we have our meeting date.
You have my email, right, Jason?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I will set some group up so that we all have it and it funnels appropriately. Okay. Is there any other business anyone wants to conduct? Is there any public comment?
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
So just for the informational purposes coming up, Rec did do a study for community center. We have plans, we have everything from years past. Do we even want to touch that? Or
If you and Jen want to touch, that's up to you and Jen.
I was thinking we should dig it up, Tim.
I got it. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I figured that you've got it in your files there.
Tim, my personal view here, hearing Jen's response, this is the option for everyone to get everything on the table. And then let's whittle it down, right? Let's listen, not form a judgment,
Mhm.
get it all on the table, and then there will be clearer paths than others, right? And let's get to a point where we have some path.
Okay.
Go ahead, Janet.
That's it.
Oh, you have your hand up, and Tim does too.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was looking to, oh, sorry. Nope, lower hand.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, as a general comment, I don't really know a ton about some of our infrastructure things in town. I know some about some things, I know some about others. You know, everybody's gonna bring some presentations of different needs and whatnot, but if there's pictures, I know that I could go down to the library, I could go down and do some stuff like that, the senior center, and walk around. But if there's pictures or anything that would be useful for everybody, I'm kind of a blank slate on what the needs and stuff are. I wouldn't mind a little bit of background on like what the, you know, what just generally like what does things look like where they are and stuff like that too. So maybe a field trip one day, or maybe it's easier with photos, but
Don't do
I'm happy
pictures.
for either one.
No, get in your car, get on your feet, and go. So, Susan, are you in the same boat on that? So here's what I would suggest, and Ryan, I'm putting you and maybe Bill to an extent. Like, can Tim and Susan, for example, contact you at any point and get a behind the scenes tour of everything to know there is about the library and the
I'd love to
COA?
give 'em a tour. Love to give them a tour of the senior center.
Okay.
Anytime.
I'll take you in all the areas of the library you never wanted to go. So we can do that.
Tim and Jen, is there anything you think they should see or on the recreation side?
I mean, if it's a blank slate, I'm happy to have them down just to show
Yeah,
what we're working
See
with
what we're
now.
using and trying to do,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. And then I assume the whole committee would like to walk through Woodward. And some have walked through.
Been there, done that. Got the.
All right. So Bill, you're all set. Janet, you're all set?
I actually didn't do the rest of the building. I did the library and, yeah.
Okay. What I will do is I will coordinate with Greg Martineau and Steve Mucci, who's the principal. It's obviously going to not be during school hours. They've been very accommodating to get access to the building. So that's going to be important to see with two eyes and spend some time. But having the plans that have been thrown out there, which none of them are going to stick, it's going to require some more discussion. Just to understand kind of what the vision was.
Yeah, that's thing that the architects did before was strictly spatial as opposed to actual layout. They just,
Yeah, it's not, it didn't move
enough
walls or
space
anything like
for
that.
senior center, enough space for library, enough space for rec. It was more of a
Mhm.
space diagnosis thing.
Right. Go ahead, Ryan.
So
Sorry, come back here. Go ahead,
I'll
Ryan.
put my hand up again.
yeah, part of what I have to do if we do move forward with a letter of intent, as part of the grant process, is I have to do a projection both of the anticipated population of Southborough and library services that would match it for the next 30 years. So a lot of that is going to be based on community input. For the library, this was going to be a strategic planning year anyway. So I know that I have a lot of stuff that I can give the committee, and Tim, I'm like happy to give you a tour and talk a little bit about the background. And Susan, I know you're a library user, so I'm happy to take you around in some of the places that you might not be as familiar with. But I just want to let you know that there's going to be additional community input we're seeking in the next couple months. And there's like a lot of engagement we have to do along the way. Like we're going to have to do surveys, focus groups, all of that. So that's a lot of this is predicated on how my meeting tomorrow goes. Because if the trustees don't want to do the letter of intent, well, there's less work for me to do. But I kind of want to let you know, Jason, that I don't have that 30-year picture yet. That's something that we would be doing in the next year. for the library side.
I don't even know how you're gonna do it in the next year, but I'll leave that to you and your board. Go ahead, Janet.
I'm just hoping, so the information that you're gonna send out, is it all verbiage, or is there a lovely graph that says current, you know, what each organization currently has, what they need, what special restrictions they have?
It's a comprehensive report. I'm sure there's something in there that you're gonna wanna see that's not in there. So I think that would be something, like, if you say, I really would have liked to have seen, like, what recreation currently has, like, if you don't think recreation's data is clear, right? You can either bring those questions in, or, you know, to the next meeting and say, hey, rec, can I see this, right? And that's
Okay.
part of the reason why we have the representatives from each group here, so that they can go off and do, like, Tim and Jen can go off and do any homework that we give them related to rec on this, and same for obviously you and Ryan and Bill and Pam.
Okay, so I may do a layout of a kind of grid that would make it easier to compare things, and then we'll have what's missing, kind of thing.
Yeah, and if, don't email the whole committee, but if there's something you think you need and it's not in what I send, email me first before you go spend time on it, because
Okay,
DRA may already have it. It just didn't make the final report.
Okay.
So what you're gonna give us, is that coming soon, so that might affect what we want to say if it's already been said?
It's mainly going to be the architect's presentation, so it's not going to have what the Council on Aging said unless you sent us formal communication.
Okay.
What I would focus, just my 2 cents, Bill, is I don't know that you need like a formal 10-page slide deck of like everything that you're thinking. I just think the committee needs to understand the themes, like what is your group thinking about, right? Like, do you need a standalone facility that doesn't interact with other groups because of this reason, that reason, this reason? Like, do you think you'll need X amount of new space in the next 10 years, but you'll need double that in 20 years because of some factor, right? Is there things you'd be willing to share, right? Like, those are, I think,
Okay.
what are the obstacles, right? And maybe it's unanimous, maybe it's one person. I think that's also important to know.
Mhm. Very good. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tim.
Kind of a general question, I guess, or to you, if you may know, where does youth and family fall in this? Are we considering them because they are our current space at South Union, or are we focusing solely on recreation and they're going to figure it out?
I think Sarah's obviously very accessible, like in as is her board. I think if we end up in a situation where they're listening to the conversation and think they should be part of it, I think we bring them to the table. I think there's a lot of other options we've provided them, given some of their confidentiality needs, that could come to fruition candidly well before any of this. So I think that should just be an ongoing conversation with Sarah, and whether you want to have it, like, and just say, hey, this is what's happening. Like, if you feel like you want to be, like, just have her raise her hand and come to the table. But we did have discussion of whether there should be another member and stuff like that. But obviously, you know, I think the goal is to give regular updates on what we're doing so that the community can react.
Tim Davis, if you're around next week, my son's there at camp all next week.
Okay.
He's got the chess camp.
There you
So,
go.
and
I'll
I
be
also
there,
live like 5 houses away.
Okay. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, I'll be there. So on pickup if you want to come a little early. Happy to walk you around.
Awesome.
Okay. Any other business for tonight?
I will handle the minutes for today's meeting. I'll go back and go over that.
You
And
know,
then I'll-
if you have any issues finding the video, just let me know.
Sure.
Are we getting on the Southborough SAM page, or are we on the Southborough Direct page?
When I end this, it's going to upload to the YouTube Southborough page. This is not through SAM. We have to be in the hearing room to do that at the townhouse.
We should fix that and have them all go to the same place. Not us, but in general, so we know where they actually all land.
That's above my pay grade.
YouTube is pretty accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just gotta figure out if it's on the SAM page or the other page if you're looking for something.
Can I ask a loaded question, not to elongate this meeting anymore?
Go ahead.
Disposal of South Union, is that going to come into factor here? Or is that a whole different universe we're not even going to touch? Because that obviously kind of directs our need,
So,
near or far need.
I mean, capital put that in the hands of the select board last year. As you know, it went as far as actually to a public bid process that,
Yep.
And then it was pulled. Is a report coming on the ability for affordable housing.
Mhm.
There's also been discussion about a unsolicited offer for the property. So that was vaguely mentioned at a very recent meeting. So it's in the select board's hands. Capital did make a recommendation as part of this year's vetting that the select board needs to really decide what they're doing with that building in the next 365 days, because if you look at John Parent's capital plan for that building next year, it's scary.
Yep.
Yeah, and we definitely, just to make you and Jen feel comfortable, like, yeah, obviously if they do something, we have a variety of options for temporary until something comes up that's probably better than what you're dealing with in some instances. So if we get that far, I know there are avenues.
I have one more.
Yeah.
So all the town, are you as head of capital planning responsible for the department space needs of all the town departments? Or are we gonna have a different representative, or are we all?
Well, I think it's important that the department head represents what they told the architect, and the architect obviously can validate how that compares to how other municipalities deal with it.
Mhm.
And no municipality is ever the same, too, full disclosure, right? What Southborough needs for a library may be very different than, our same size town 5 borders away because of the population that exists.
I'm thinking more of the building department, the Board of Health, all these scattered things and what their needs are.
I think that's what we did already last year. So unless we'll probably ask them to make sure nothing's changed, which I can't think of anything off the top of my head. That doesn't mean something hasn't changed. So the architect surveyed every single department head multiple times. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion though with library, council on aging, recreation, about their needs, given that those were the largest space requests beyond what we currently have. Like the amount of space that Mark Purple needs for a conference room versus a town meeting space, that's negligible in the grand scheme of total square footage.
Right. Okay.
We shouldn't have to be involved in what the municipal needs are. We're just involved in our 3 individual efforts.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would say is if we become aware of an opportunity, let's just say I guess the one scenario I could see happening, right, is if some subsection of the needs are accommodated by Woodward, you will likely still have extra space in that building, the 70,000 square foot building. Who goes there and what the shuffling is, that's going to be probably more of a capital once we decide that the community center needs are met, right? So and at some point the library may break off from this too, right? I think that's a potentially viable path, is you may just go and have to have your own building committee, and the community center is kind of left as recreation and council on aging.
Yeah, I mean, that's a couple steps ahead, but I don't think that is not a possibility at this point, Jason. I would just say, no disrespect to the architects, but I did walk around with them. I did talk to them a lot. And then when I you know, I viewed the presentation and read the documents like everybody else. And I think some of their suggestions for the library were kind of bizarre to me. And I've worked in libraries a long time. You know, the person said that there was libraries that have split their services across 2 buildings. I mean, I still have not found an accurate example of that. So, you know, again, no disrespect to them. They're the
Okay.
architects. I'm not, but that was my takeaway. So.
We gave them limited space to work with, too, right? Like because we couldn't create a building we don't have. That is an option for this committee, costs, aside. All right. Any other thoughts before we adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
Second.
adjourn.
It's been made by Tim, seconded by Bill. All in favor, Bill,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Tim F,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
and Jason is yes. So I will send invites and see everyone in a few weeks and start to get you the information.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Bye-bye.
Well,